Princess Vilesa sat on the grand balcony of the Zilarian palace, her silver-blue skin glowing under the soft light of her homeworld's twin moons. The night breeze was gentle, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside her heart. Her golden eyes stared at the distant stars, knowing that soon she would be leaving her home, perhaps forever. She had always known her life was not her own. As the only daughter of Emperor Xyril, she was a political tool, a symbol of power. But she never imagined that one day she would be given away to a human. The war had been devastating. The Zilarian Empire, once proud and mighty, had believed they could easily conquer the young human race. After all, humans had only recently entered the galactic stage. Compared to Zilarian technology, their weapons were primitive, their fleets were smaller, their empire was new. And yet, humanity had won. No one in the palace spoke of it openly, but Vilesa had heard the whispers. The humans were not weak. They were not primitive. They fought with a ferocity the Zilarian generals had never seen before. They did not surrender, even when they were outnumbered. They adapted. They learned. And in the end, they turned the tide of war. The Zilarian Empire had no choice but to sign a peace treaty or risk total destruction. And now, to seal that treaty, she was to be married off to a human. A shiver ran down her spine. Not just any human. Commander Elias Voss. She had never met him, but she had heard the stories. A human warrior, a war hero, a man who had led countless battles against her people. Some called him ruthless. Others called him a genius of war. He had defeated her father's fleets with impossible strategies. And now he was to be her husband. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. It is a necessary sacrifice, Vilesa. The Empire needs peace. You will do your duty. Vilesa clenched her fists. She had never feared battle. She had trained with the best warriors of her people. But this was different. She was being sent to a foreign world, to live among humans, beings she had been raised to believe were violent and unpredictable. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Her handmaiden, Larry, stepped forward, her purple eyes full of sorrow. Princess, the human envoy has arrived. They are waiting for you. Vilesa took a deep breath. There was no escape from this fate. She rose from her seat, her royal gown flowing around her like liquid silver. Then let us not keep them waiting. The departure. The Zilarian spaceport was silent. There were no grand farewells, no cheering crowds. Only a handful of officials and royal guards stood at the platform. The sight of the massive human starship waiting for her sent a fresh wave of unease through Vilesa. It was unlike any Zilarian vessel. Human ships were built for function over beauty, designed with sharp angles and thick armor. It looked like a war machine, and perhaps it was. A group of humans stood at the entrance of the ship, waiting. Among them, one man stood taller than the rest. Vilesa felt her heart pound. Commander Elias Voss. She forced herself to keep her head high as she approached. The human commander was not what she expected. She had imagined a terrifying warrior with scars and cruel eyes. Instead, the man before her was calm, unreadable. His uniform was crisp, his posture strong but not aggressive. His face was sharp, with a short beard lining his jaw. But it was his eyes that unsettled her the most. They were a deep shade of brown, focused but not unkind. There was no arrogance in them, no cruelty, only curiosity. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind carried the distant hum of starships above. Finally, Elias broke the silence. Princess Vilesa. His voice was deep but controlled, his expression unreadable. Vilesa lifted her chin slightly. Commander Voss. A strange tension hung between them. Elias studied her for a moment before stepping aside. Your quarters have been prepared. We leave in 10 minutes. No greetings, no forced kindness. Just simple, direct words. Vilesa hesitated, then stepped forward, crossing the threshold of the human warship. The doors sealed behind her. She was now in human territory. Her new life had begun. Princess Vilesa stood in the middle of the human warship's corridor, her golden eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. The metal walls were cold, the lights bright but not harsh. Unlike Solarian ships, which were designed with elegance and artistic patterns, this vessel was purely functional. Every part of it was made for efficiency, not beauty. A soft hum filled the air as the engines powered up. She felt the faint shift in gravity as the ship lifted off. Her homeworld, Zillaris, was behind her now. The realization hit her like a heavy weight in her chest. There was no turning back. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "You should follow me." Vilesa turned to see Commander Elias Voss standing a few steps away. His uniform was still pristine, his posture straight, his expression unreadable. She hesitated for a second, but then nodded. She would not show weakness. Elias led her down the corridor, his steps firm but unhurried. The human crew members they passed did not stare at her as much as she expected. A few glanced in her direction, their expressions ranging from curiosity to indifference, but none showed hostility. That was surprising. Vilesa had been raised to believe that humans were wild, unpredictable, and aggressive. Yet these soldiers moved with discipline and focus. "Your quarters are here," Elias said, stopping in front of a door. It slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a small but well-organized room. A bed, a desk, a storage unit. The walls were plain, lacking the vibrant colors of Xylarian chambers, but it was clean. "It's not as large as your palace, but it's private," Elias added, his voice neutral. Vilesa stepped inside, running her fingers along the desk's surface. It was cold metal, so different from the crystal furniture of her home. She turned back to Elias. "And you? Where are your quarters?" "2 levels down, near the command center." She studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. Was he really going to leave her alone? In Xylarian culture, royal unions were closely monitored. If this were a Xylarian ship, guards and attendants would constantly surround her. But here, they were leaving her to her own space. Elias seemed to sense her thoughts. "No one will disturb you, but if you need something, you can ask through the intercom." Vilesa hesitated before nodding. "Understood." Elias lingered for a moment, then gave a small nod and left. The door slid shut. Vilesa exhaled slowly and sat on the edge of the bed. This was real. She was on a human warship. She was to marry a human commander. And she had no idea what was waiting for her at the end of this journey. Unseen eyes. Hours passed, maybe more. Vilesa couldn't sleep. The silence of the ship was different from home. Xylarian palaces always had the soft hum of energy fields, the distant sound of attendants moving about. Here, there was only the occasional beep of control panels and the steady vibration of the ship's engines. She rose from the bed and walked to the window. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. A part of her ached to see Zillaris one last time, but it was already far behind. A sudden voice startled her. "Couldn't sleep." Vilesa turned sharply. Elias stood at the doorway, his arms crossed. Her first instinct was to question how he entered, but then she noticed he hadn't stepped inside. He stood at the threshold, respecting her space. She frowned. "Do humans not sleep?" "We do, but I have a habit of checking on things." Vilesa studied him. There was no mockery in his tone, no arrogance, just a simple statement. She turned back to the window. "It's strange, this quiet." Elias was silent for a moment, then said, "You'll get used to it." Vilesa doubted that. She glanced at him again. "You don't seem as ruthless as the stories say." That made Elias chuckle softly. "And you don't seem as cold as the Xylarian nobles claim." She narrowed her eyes slightly. "So you've heard stories about me?" "Of course. You're the daughter of an emperor. Stories always follow people like us." Vilesa considered that. It was true. Elias leaned slightly against the doorway. "Do you believe everything you hear?" She met his gaze. "No. Do you?" Elias smirked. Not anymore. For a moment, there was an odd understanding between them. Vilesa didn't fully trust him. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the monster she had imagined. And maybe this journey wouldn't be as terrible as she feared. Vilesa woke up to the soft hum of the ship's engines. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The bed beneath her was not the silk-covered comfort of Xilarian royalty, but the firm, practical design of a human warship. The air smelled of metal and machinery, not the floral-scented breeze of her home. Then, it all came back to her. She sat up, brushing her silver-white hair behind her pointed ears. She was no longer on Xilarius, no longer surrounded by her people. She was among humans now. A chime sounded, breaking the silence. Vilesa turned as the door slid open. A human stood there, not Elias, but a younger man with short, dark hair and a curious expression. He wore the same uniform as the other crew members. "Good morning, Princess Vilesa," he said with a respectful nod. "Commander Voss asked me to escort you to the dining hall." Vilesa studied him. He was polite, but there was no fear in his voice, no hesitation. He did not look at her the way Xilarian nobles did, with either admiration or jealousy. To him, she was just another passenger on the ship. She stood gracefully. Very well. The young soldier led her through the ship's corridors. As they walked, Vilesa observed the humans carefully. They moved with purpose, not the stiff formality of Xilarian attendants, but a kind of relaxed confidence. Some walked with datapads, discussing things in hushed tones. Others passed by with tools, clearly working on maintenance. Everyone had a role. Everyone seemed necessary. And no one stopped to stare at her. She had expected to feel like an outsider, to sense hostility. But instead, the humans simply accepted her presence. It was strange. Breakfast and conversations. The dining hall was functional, just like the rest of the ship. Long metal tables lined the room, where crew members sat, eating simple meals. The air carried the scent of something warm, though far different from Xilarian cuisine. At the far end of the room, Elias sat at a table, waiting. Vilesa approached cautiously. Elias gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit." She hesitated but then complied. "Are human meals always so simple?" she asked, glancing at the tray placed before her. It held a few items, some kind of grain, a slice of fruit, and a dark liquid in a cup. Elias smirked. "We're on a warship, not a luxury cruiser." Vilesa picked up the cup first, sniffing the drink inside. It had a strong, bitter scent. "What is this?" "Coffee." She took a careful sip. The bitterness hit her immediately. Elias chuckled at her expression. "Not what you expected." Vilesa set the cup down, swallowing the taste. "It's different." Elias took a sip from his own cup. "It's an acquired taste. Helps us stay awake." Vilesa nodded slowly. There was something intriguing about this. Xilarian drinks were always sweet, smooth, refined. This was rough, bold, unapologetic. Like humans themselves. She tried the food next. The grain was plain but not unpleasant. The fruit was surprisingly good, sweeter than she expected. "Your people eat to survive," she noted, "not for enjoyment." Elias smirked. "Depends. Some humans make food an art, but on a ship like this, efficiency matters more." Vilesa considered that. Xilarian nobility often spent hours on elaborate meals, each dish crafted for perfection. Yet here, humans ate quickly, focusing on their duties rather than luxury. And strangely, she found that admirable. Challenging assumptions. As they ate, Vilesa found herself studying Elias again. She had expected him to be ruthless, intimidating, and in some ways he was. His posture was firm, his movements precise. He carried the aura of a warrior. But there was something else too. He was not cruel, not aggressive. He had a calm intensity, a controlled power that she had never seen in Xilarian warlords. Vilesa spoke carefully. "Back on Xilarius, we were told that humans are dangerous. Elias raised an eyebrow. And what do you think now? She hesitated. I think. I don't understand you yet. Elias leaned back slightly. Good. Understanding takes time. Vilesa met his gaze. There was no arrogance in his tone, no attempt to prove superiority, just a simple truth. And for the first time, she felt something unexpected. Curiosity. A test of strength. After breakfast, Elias led her to another part of the ship, a training area. The space was open, with padded floors and various pieces of exercise equipment. A few soldiers were already there, engaged in sparring sessions. Vilesa frowned. Why bring me here? Elias gestured to the soldiers. Because I want you to see something. She watched as two humans engaged in a close combat match. They moved fast, exchanging blows with efficiency and power. There was no wasted movement, no unnecessary flourishes. Every strike had purpose. Solarians favored elegant combat, using energy weapons and swift strikes. But humans, they fought like survival was instinct. One soldier pinned his opponent, forcing him to submit. They both stood after, shaking hands before resetting for another match. Vilesa turned to Elias. You train like warriors, but you do not kill your own. Elias nodded. Strength is useless without control. We fight to sharpen our skills, not to destroy each other. Vilesa absorbed his words. This was not what she had been taught. She had always believed humans were reckless, violent, without discipline. But here, she saw something different. Their strength was not mindless. It was focused, controlled. And for the first time, she questioned everything she had been told. A shift in perspective. That night, Vilesa stood in her quarters, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Everything she had seen today, it changed something inside her. She was still wary of humans, but she could no longer deny what she had witnessed. They were not mindless barbarians. They were something else entirely. And maybe, just maybe, her future was not as hopeless as she had feared. Vilesa sat in her quarters, staring at the ceiling. Sleep had not come easily. The events of the past few days weighed on her mind. Everything she had known about humans was being challenged. Back on Solaris, she had been taught that humans were violent, unpredictable, and lacked discipline. But on this ship, she saw the opposite: order, control, and purpose. Elias Voss was nothing like the ruthless warlord she had imagined. He was strong, yes, but not cruel. What did that mean for her future? A soft chime echoed in the room, signaling a visitor. She straightened. Enter. The door slid open, and Elias stepped inside, dressed in his usual dark uniform. His presence filled the small space instantly, his movements calm yet commanding. You're up early, he observed. Vilesa folded her hands in her lap. I could not sleep. Elias nodded as if he understood. A lot has changed for you. She hesitated before speaking. I was told humans are dangerous. She met his gaze. But now I see there is more to your people than I thought. Elias crossed his arms. And what do you think now? Vilesa took a slow breath. I want to understand. A small smile touched Elias's lips. Then let's start with something simple. Follow me. She frowned but stood, curiosity pushing aside hesitation. A different kind of power. Elias led her through the ship's corridors. It was early, and most of the crew was busy with their tasks. The humans moved with confidence, focused on their duties. No one paid special attention to her, something she was not used to. Finally, they reached a new section of the ship, a large observation deck. The walls were made of reinforced glass, revealing the vast expanse of space outside. Stars stretched endlessly, a breathtaking view of the galaxy. Vilesa stepped forward, drawn to the sight. It's beautiful. Elias leaned against the railing. It is. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, Elias spoke. You've seen human strength in combat, but there's another kind of strength that matters just as much. Vilesa turned toward him. What do you mean? Elias gestured to the stars. Humanity didn't become powerful just because we fight. We became strong because we build, explore, and push forward. We survive, no matter what. Vilesa considered his words. She had always thought of strength as something physical, something that could be measured in battle. But Elias spoke of something deeper, a strength of spirit. Your people have suffered, haven't they? She asked. Elias nodded. More times than I can count. Wars, disasters, betrayals. And yet, we always rebuild. We don't let the past define us. That's why we're here now, standing in the same place, despite everything that separates us. Vilesa turned back to the stars, her heart heavy with unspoken thoughts. Could she do the same? Could she let go of her past beliefs and embrace a new path? For the first time, she wondered if her future was truly hers to decide. A test of trust. Later that day, Vilesa found herself in the ship's training hall again. This time, Elias stood across from her, a training staff in hand. You're going to spar with me, he said. Vilesa arched an eyebrow. You wish to fight me? Elias smirked. Not fight. Teach. I want to see how you handle yourself. Vilesa hesitated. Xylarian combat was graceful, fluid, and precise, focused on speed and strategy. Human combat, from what she had seen, was different. Raw, direct, powerful. She took a staff from the rack, holding it in a balanced stance. Very well. Elias moved first, a simple strike toward her side. She deflected it smoothly, stepping back. He came again. Faster this time. Vilesa countered, her movements precise. But Elias's attacks were different from anything she had faced before. He didn't move in expected patterns. He adapted, shifting his stance in ways that forced her to react quickly. It was challenging and strangely exciting. Minutes passed, the sound of clashing staffs filling the room. Vilesa found herself smiling, a real, unguarded smile. Elias noticed. You're enjoying this. She laughed softly, surprising herself. Perhaps I am. Then, in a swift movement, Elias disarmed her, knocking the staff from her hands. It clattered to the floor. Vilesa froze. In Xylarian tradition, losing in combat meant submission, but Elias didn't press his advantage. Instead, he offered his hand. She stared at it for a moment before taking it. A silent agreement. A new kind of understanding. A step forward. As Vilesa walked back to her quarters later, she felt lighter. Something had changed. For the first time, she saw Elias not as an enemy, not even as just her future husband, but as someone she could learn from. She was still uncertain about the path ahead. But one thing was clear. The more she learned about humans, the more she wanted to know. Vilesa sat in the observation deck again, staring at the endless stars. She had been on this human warship for days, yet every moment brought something new. A new challenge, a new lesson, a new truth about humans. Her time with Elias Voss had changed something inside her. She no longer saw him as a ruthless warlord, but as a leader, a warrior, and perhaps someone she could trust. But trust was not something easily given. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. The door slid open, and Elias stepped inside, holding 2 cups of something warm. He handed one to her. You should try this. It helps with thinking. Vilesa hesitated before taking the cup. The rich, earthy aroma filled her senses. She took a small sip, bitter but strangely comforting. What is this? Coffee. Elias leaned against the railing, looking at her. Humans drink it when we need to stay sharp. Vilesa studied him. Your people rely on many things to push forward. Coffee, technology, sheer stubbornness. Elias chuckled. You forgot something. What? He smiled slightly. Each other. Vilesa blinked. Of all the things she expected him to say, that was not one of them. A human's perspective. Tell me something, Elias said, watching her. Back on Zillaris, what were you taught about humans? Vilesa exhaled slowly. That you are dangerous. That your kind values war above all else. That you take what you want without care for who suffers. Elias nodded, as if unsurprised. And what do you believe now? She hesitated. Her heart told her something different from what she had always known. I believe there is more to you than I was taught. Elias smirked. That's a start. She narrowed her eyes. You sound pleased with yourself. I am. He took another sip of coffee. Most species fear us. They judge us from a distance. But humans, he tapped his chest. We only grow stronger the more others doubt us. Vilesa tilted her head. Why is that? Elias set his cup down. Because we don't give up. We fight. We adapt. And we survive. And more than that, we care about those who stand with us. Vilesa frowned. Even if they are different from you. Elias nodded. Especially then. Strength isn't just about power, princess. It's about standing together, even when the odds are against you. For a long time, Vilesa said nothing. She had spent her whole life preparing for war, for strategy, for survival. But humans fought for something more, each other. And suddenly, that kind of strength didn't seem so strange anymore. The captain's decision. Later that day, Vilesa was walking through the ship's corridors when she heard raised voices. Curious, she followed the sound to the command room. Elias stood at the center, surrounded by his officers. A holographic map displayed their current location, along with a flashing red signal. An approaching Xylarian fleet. Her people. A cold sensation ran through Vilesa's chest. Had they come for her? One of the officers spoke. Captain, the Xylarian ships are requesting a meeting. They say it's urgent. Elias glanced at Vilesa before answering. Open a channel. A moment later, the large screen flickered to life, revealing a Xylarian commander. His silver armor gleamed, and his sharp gaze settled on Elias with barely hidden disdain. Human, the commander said. You hold something that belongs to us. Return the princess at once. Vilesa's breath caught. So, it was true. Her people had come for her. She turned to Elias, expecting him to look angry or defensive. Instead, his face remained unreadable. And if I refuse? Elias asked calmly. The commander's lips curled. Then we take her by force. The room tensed. The officers waited for Elias's response, but instead of reacting with hostility, he did something unexpected. He turned to Vilesa. What do you want to do? Silence filled the room. Vilesa's heart pounded. This was her decision. Back on Zillaris, she had never been given a choice. Her life had always been controlled by duty, by expectations. But now, here on this human ship, Elias was letting her decide for herself. She turned back to the screen, meeting the commander's eyes. I will speak with my people. Alone. Elias studied her for a long moment before nodding. Clear the room. One by one, the officers left until it was just Vilesa and the commander on the screen. She straightened her shoulders. Why have you come? The commander's eyes narrowed. To bring you home. This arrangement was never meant to be. Vilesa clenched her fists. You mean the alliance? Or my marriage to Captain Voss? The commander's face hardened. Both. We never expected you to actually live among the humans. You are to return, and this deal will be reconsidered. Anger burned inside her. So I was only a pawn. A piece to be moved when convenient. The commander's silence told her everything. But she was no longer the same woman who had left Zillaris. She took a steady breath. I will not return as a prisoner. If you want me to come back, then we will negotiate, properly, with respect. The commander's face darkened. You do not make the rules, princess. Vilesa lifted her chin. Then I suggest you learn from the humans, because they do not bow so easily. The screen went dark. Elias, who had been standing silently by the door, finally spoke. That was bold. Vilesa turned to him. Was it wrong? Elias smirked. Not at all. But you just made things interesting. Vilesa exhaled. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in her life, she had made a choice for herself. And no matter what came next, she would face it, not as a pawn, but as her own person. Vilesa sat in silence, her thoughts racing. For the first time in her life, she had spoken her own will, not her people's. But she knew the consequences were coming. The Xylarian commander would not let this matter rest. Elias Voss stood nearby, arms crossed, studying her. His expression was unreadable, but she could feel his sharp mind working. They won't just leave, he finally said. Vilesa nodded. I know. Elias sighed, stepping closer. Then tell me, princess, what do you want to do? The question made her chest tighten. What did she want? Not what her people wanted. Not what the Galactic Council expected. She lifted her chin. I want to face them. On my terms. Elias gave her a slow nod of approval. Then let's make sure you're ready. Preparing for the meeting. The warship's conference room was large, built for strategy discussions. Now it would serve as the meeting ground between Vilesa and her people. Elias had insisted that a neutral ground was necessary. No weapons, no threats. Vilesa agreed, but she also knew the Xylarian commander wouldn't play fair. Still, when the time came, she stood in the room alone. Elias had given her space, though she knew he was close by, ready if anything went wrong. The door slid open, and the Xylarian commander entered, flanked by 2 guards. Vilesa kept her expression neutral. Commander Vorin. Elias stepped beside her, arms crossed. Your message was sent. Now we wait. Vilesa exhaled slowly. Would her father listen? Or was she already considered a traitor? She turned to Elias. If this goes wrong, will you still stand with me? Elias smirked. Princess, I've come too far to back down now. His confidence was steady as ever, and for the first time, Vilesa felt a sense of security she had never known before. The council's response. Hours later, a response finally arrived. The live transmission from the Royal Council of Xylaris. Vilesa took a deep breath as the holographic figures appeared before her father's closest advisors. One of them, Lord Tarson, spoke first. Princess Vilesa, you have defied orders and placed yourself in the company of a human. Do you deny this? Vilesa lifted her chin. I do not deny it. But I ask you, have you truly heard the full story? Tarson's gaze narrowed. Explain yourself. She took a deep breath. Commander Vorin was not here to bring me home. He was working with Lord Cavan to remove me permanently. Gasps rippled through the council. Vilesa continued, her voice firm. I have proof of his transmissions. If you review them, you will see that I was never the enemy. I was the target. A heavy silence filled the air. Finally, another voice spoke, deep, weary, yet full of authority. Vilesa. Her breath hitched. Her father. The king of Xylaris appeared on the display, his eyes filled with exhaustion. Is what you say true? Vilesa met his gaze. It is, father. The king turned to Tarson. Verify the transmissions. Seconds felt like hours as the council reviewed Elias's data. Then, finally, Tarson nodded. The transmissions are authentic, Your Majesty. Lord Cavan has betrayed the crown. A murmur spread through the council. The king sighed. Then I have misjudged you, my daughter. His voice softened. And I am proud of your courage. Vilesa's heart swelled. She had done it. A choice of her own. With Lord Cavan exposed, the council ordered the arrest of his supporters. Xylaris would not be divided by betrayal. Elias smirked. So, princess, looks like you saved your people after all. Vilesa turned to him, something warm in her chest. Not alone. You stood by me. His eyes held hers. And I always will. She smiled. Then I have one more request. Elias raised an eyebrow. Oh. Vilesa stepped forward, her voice steady. I want to stay here. With you. Elias blinked. What? She chuckled. I will always be Zalarian, but I have seen too much to simply go back and pretend nothing has changed. I want to learn more about your people. And about you. Elias smirked. Well, princess, I think I can live with that. Vilesa took his hand, feeling a new chapter beginning. Not as a princess forced into an alliance, but as a woman choosing her own path. And for the first time, the future looked brighter than ever.